So next thing we want to do is we want to actually start setting up the authentication with Firebase so we can connect to it and then we can store photos to Firebase. So let's actually set this up at the top first. I'm just gonna end this terminal or this server right here so we don't get the red errors down there. And here at the top, I'm just going to import everything that I need to import. And I'll also just set up the Firebase configuration here in this same page. You can always set it up in a different file. I'll put a link down below if you want to know how to organize this Firebase stuff in another file and import it. But let me just do it all on one page for now. And in order to set up Firebase, you can also watch my other video, but I already have one set up. And I want to go to the actual settings, project settings for Firebase. And I want to grab all this information to import. I'm just going to remove all these extra green lines of comments so it doesn't get confusing. There we go. So I got all my keys there, so it can reference that. Firebase, and I'll do const storage get storage because we're going to use the storage part of Firebase, and the storage part of Firebase, I'll show you where that is located. So here in Firebase, when you look in Firebase here, if we actually click on Firebase, I'll go to one of my projects here. This is the one that I'm working with. And it's just this area called storage on the left side. And I'm just setting up the storage right now so I can upload the files and folders. You can see I already have some stuff because I tested it out before, but you can see here if you have any rules that you need to configure. This is the basic rule that is just saying we want to allow the read and write permissions in order to allow that upload of whatever photo we take with our phone. And this is really important that you use this, and I believe this one is just the regular playground, so it's not the let me just see here. It is version 2. I think this one's just called like the testing purposes area, so this is not the real live environment. So you might be given the option to go for live development or just the testing purposes. Right now we're just doing testing purposes, so you can just create these rules if you don't already have it inside of the edit rules area and storage, and that way you'll be all set up. And what we need to do now is we need to just actually set up the rest of this application. We can make sure that we can register and sign in a user as well. So if we want to do that, we need to make sure that the area that we need to go to, I believe, is authentication. So right over here, authentication, we need to make sure that the sign-in method that we have email and password enabled, because I'm going to show you guys how to set up that email and password enable portion. And you can just click add new provider and then select whichever one. Right now I'm just going to show you email and password for this mobile development. So let's just say we want to create the user first. So let's do a function to create user. And I'm just going to add a console log at the end so I could see when they're signed in. And in order to actually grab the information, we need to have some text inputs here. So I'm just going to say, instead of photo area, I'll just say we have permission. And I'll put text input. And I just want to grab the email of whatever the user puts in so then I can store it later. And I'll have a placeholder just saying email. And then I'll just put another text input, but that'll be for the password. So these set email and set passwords are for the use states that we have up here that we've already set up, and we're just going to save it there, and then that's going to be used when we actually create and sign in with that user. And this create user should actually be create user with email and password, because we're just creating them right now. And what I want to do right now is I actually want to have a button where I can create the user. Okay, so now that we've created the user, let's actually test this out when we've created this button and text input for it. So if we take a look online here, we will just look at what we have for our users right now. So you can see here the latest one was the November test at test.com. So I'll just create another test email, which will be like December at test.com, and let's see if this actually gets added there so we know that it's working correctly. So I'm going to just start this app. Okay, so first thing we forgot to install was the Firebase storage. So Firebase storage install on Expo. So let's actually install this first. So I need to end the server, and then I just need to install Firebase storage. So I just am running the npx expo install Firebase because it can't recognize Firebase just yet. So let me install it. Next, we just will run it again. And I'll just scan this QR code again on my actual cell phone. I'll just refresh this application here. So I'm going to test it out here and see what it's doing. So this one, I just want to change this to password so then it's just easier to recognize. And I'm just going to register a new user right now. I'll say December at test.com. And then password. For Firebase, you need at least 6 characters. So I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And register. So it says down here in terminal, I have this sign-in code here for the UID, but let's actually double check here. So here in Firebase, this is the old email addresses we have, and if I refresh the page, we should see the new one. And perfect, we got that December at test.com that has been added to Firebase authentication. So we know that the registration is working right now. So let's do the sign in as well. So if someone has already registered, then we can just sign them in automatically. Let's set that up as well. So we're using the sign in with email and password method for Firebase. And we're going to grab the authentication, email, and password, as long as they match. And we'll just say we signed in once we have signed in. And we'll just grab the user UID. And what I'll do is I will create another button at the bottom here. And in this button, I'll do on press for the sign in now. And I'll have the title of sign in. And when you rerun your application on your mobile phone, I can see that I have the register and sign in button now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try logging in with this user November at test.com as long as I remember that password. So let me give it a try. And if it works, I should see it in the terminal, the UID for that user. So I clicked on sign in, and right here I can see the UID for that user sign in. So I know that I have signed in with that user correctly. If it hasn't, then there would have been some sort of other error here. So what I need to do now is I need to actually just set up the handle capture for the image and uploading the file as well right now.